Ms. McSally.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General Waldhauser, my last assignment in the Air Force was standing up AFRICOM in those early days, and then I was the J-33 until I retired. So I feel personally vested in your mission succeeding. I've got a lot of memories, good and bad, about those experiences. But my questions are kind of formed and shaped from my experiences there, many of which were very frustrating. Part of my responsibility was overseeing our counterterrorism operations, time-sensitive targeting on the continent. And what we saw was, in Somalia, for example, at the time, we would watch hundreds, probably thousands of al-Shabaab trainees being trained and graduated. We had a number of approved terrorists that we could have schwacked, that we went through the whole process that you're very familiar with of PID and collateral damage, and we had all the authorities, and we would ramp up time and time and time again on days and nights and weekends and holidays, only to have to do a VTC with political appointees who then would tell us that we had no permission to execute. That's a perfect example of how not to do time-sensitive targeting when you've got to put PowerPoint slides together and brief Washington, D.C. on it every single time, as you know, because all that is fleeting. I think of one in particular who was involved in the embassy bombings in Africa in 1998, and we were asked the question, well, what have they done bad lately, as if they were now a Sunday school teacher or a Boy Scout leader. So it was extremely frustrating. We were only ultimately allowed to schwack one terrorist while I was there, while we worked up for dozens, and we watched hundreds and maybe thousands be trained by al-Shabaab. Similarly, AQIM just continued to grow and metastasize to the west, and we just were unwilling or unable as a government to do anything about it while they continued to build their war chests and, as you know, get ransom money and all that types of things. I saw last year there were 30 strikes in Somalia, and as you know, we're not going to kill our way out of this, but you can certainly help create the space for opportunities for there to be stability there and to make sure these terrorist organizations don't export their terror to Europe and to America. So it seems like things are ramping up and that you've been given some greater decision-making authority. I just was wondering if you could share if something has shifted as far as decentralizing the decision-making so that you can actually go after some of these terrorists when they do pop up so we can take them out.
Well, thank you very much, Congresswoman. I appreciate it. And just by the way, we've commissioned a study on the 10 years of AFRICOM to see if, in fact, what was envisioned 10 years ago, how we're making progress today. And so hopefully we'll get something on that to see if we're carrying out the vision that you were part of 10 years ago. In this session, what I can tell you is things have changed significantly from what you just described. Today, as a result of the principles, standard, and procedures and the operating principles that we have authority, and we do not have to go through the process that you described. I will tell you that one of the things that's very, very interesting to watch is those who have been delegated the authority to actually conduct these strikes, the efforts they go through to make sure that the levels of certainty of civilian casualties, non-combatants are taken care of. And moreover, the NGOs. It's
extraordinary, as you know. Right?
It's extraordinary.
Yep.
As well as the NGOs, because in places like Somalia, when you have the food insecurity and you have NGO organizations working around the battlefield, it's important that we know where they are. But the bottom line is we have the authorities that we need. The scenario you just described is not the way it is today, and I'm very comfortable with how this is being done.
And has that been, and I don't want you, to get, have to make political statements here, but has some of that shifted with the new administration, that you've had additional authorities and decentralization over the last year?
Well, to be honest, we had some authorities under the previous administration, but they were for a specific period of time. What we have now, we have authorities that aren't bound by time. There are some bounding of geography and that type of thing, but we have the ability, and again, to support, not just on our own, but support a strategy for a federal government and a president that we're trying to assist.
Great, thank you. I appreciate it. I think it's important for the American people to know the extraordinary measures that our warfighters go through in order to make sure we hit exactly the bad guy and nobody else around it. But you cannot, unless you're given the decision-making authority, you just that intelligence is fleeting and the situation changes quickly. So it's good to hear that you now have the decision-making authority that you need. Similarly, there's a challenge, as you know, with the geography and the lack of resources and sharing resources. Some of that's already been brought up today, but from airlift, ISR, QRF, other issues. Have you had any issues with the sharing of resources where you just did not have it when you needed it based on the arrangements that we have?
One of the things we do very, very well is share with CENTCOM, share with EUCOM. It's just how we all conduct operations these days. Very good closer working relationships. And but our commanders are with the philosophy in AFRICOM in terms of buy with and through. They know that if they don't have what they need, we're going to have to come back another day. But that's usually not the case. Okay. We plan so that we can share assets with our fellow combatant commanders, and we plan our operations that way.
Great, thanks. I'm out of time.
Thank you.